What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabaugh here with you guys. I was in Harrisburg yesterday. Well, I'm back in Pittsburgh today, and I am joined by one of my good pals here, JP Acosta from SB Nation. What's up, JP?
Nothing much, nothing much. It feels good to be on. First time. I'm ready to talk some ball.
Yeah, finally having JP on. JP, I should have had you on during draft season. We should have had you on after the draft, something, but no, we didn't. And now we are because the Steelers have made so many moves, and it feels like I've just been beat over the head consistently with move after move after move and talk after talk after talk. But this Steelers team is crazy. Let me just ask you this first before we get into the real question. Is this not one of the craziest off seasons you've seen just for a singular team in a while? Because it really feels like the Steelers have done one of the craziest wild off seasons I've seen in recent memory.
It feels wild, especially when you think about what this team has normally done and what the Steelers kind of are to everybody outside of Pittsburgh. They are always the button up, like we're going to keep everything within the house. We're not going to make any big crazy moves. And now it's just like, oh my God, we're gonna go trade for DK Metcalf. We're gonna go trade for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith, trade away Minka Fitzpatrick, sign Aaron Rodgers. It feels like everything that's happening right now is leading to an answer to a much bigger question of what the Steelers exactly are doing.
Mhm.
But it's been crazy to watch as a national writer just because I don't think we've seen this level of activity from the Steelers towards outside free agents in a long time.
Yeah, it hasn't happened. They don't make trades like this. They don't make signings like this. They don't do stuff like this. Which leads me to the question of, I think we know why they're doing this, and it's because that playoff win hasn't come since 2017. It's been a long time. But I'll ask you this, JP, and this is the question I'm going to ask you. What does a successful 2025 season look like for Pittsburgh? Is a playoff win good enough, given what they've made? And I think that's the big question here. I'll tell you this. I think if the Steelers go 10-7, win a playoff game, and then bow out in the divisional round, the organization will consider this year a success. Do you consider that a success, though?
I think it would be a success, especially considering what the Steelers have done in the previous seasons and why they went out and signed Aaron Rodgers, why they went and traded for DK Metcalf, why they're kind of doing the whole expendables one last job thing. It's not to win a Super Bowl. I don't think this team, quite frankly, I don't think this team is good enough to get to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, to have to go through Baltimore, Buffalo, or Kansas City, potentially on the road in all those games. But with the Steelers having constantly gotten to that wall of the wild card round and constantly lost in great in humiliating fashion in a lot of ways in the wild card round, it feels like the goal this year is to get past that, to get that wild card round win and give yourself at least a shot in the divisional round. That's what I think the Steelers really want. They want a reasonable chance with this offense in the playoffs. They want a reasonable shot because every few years since like 2017, like you said, it's felt like this offense, especially at the quarterback spot, has been good enough to get to the playoffs. But once you have to go up against the mutant quarterbacks that you face year in, year out, you don't have enough firepower. So I think this year it comes down to they want to get to the divisional round. And whatever happens from there, you have Aaron Rodgers, who has experience in those games, and you have a defense that's built to potentially make big plays in a single game sample size. So it's just about getting past the wild card round for now to be considered a success.
Right. I always do question how much winning one playoff game wins. How much it matters if Pittsburgh goes to Houston and wins. Like, does that change the trajectory of this franchise? I mean, I think last year they could have gone to Houston and won. I think that team could have, but I think what would make a bigger statement is if they went to Buffalo and won, if they went to Baltimore and won, beat Kansas City, something like that. I think that'd be a big statement for them. I'm not sure. I guess my question is every time I ask people this is why does a singular playoff win mean so much? Like, why does one playoff win mean so much to this team and this franchise? Because they made so many short-term moves, and obviously next year, like, what is the long-term franchise benefit of doing what they did this year to try and win a playoff game? And I do think there actually is merit to it. I think it's about building a new culture, because they have a young team. They have a ton of young players. Um, and I think a successful season with a playoff win likely means, I don't think it means they're carried by Rodgers, they're carried by Ramsey, they're carried by these older players. I think it likely means you see Joey Porter Jr. take the next step. You see Derek Harmon play really well. You get contributions maybe from a Roman Wilson. You just see young guys step up. The O line obviously is a huge part of this, I think. So to me, while a playoff win is important, I think the biggest thing, the Steelers could go 10-7 losing the wild card round, but if they have these young guys that are stepping up consistently and laying the foundation for the future of this franchise, I think that's just as important as just this singular wild card win. While important, I do think the progression of the young players is really important for them too.
Yeah, I think, like you said, with these young players, ultimately they are your ceiling. With Joey Porter Jr., with Derek Harmon, you'll add Caleb Johnson in there. Those guys are the people who are going to be the franchise centerpieces, even beyond when Aaron Rodgers leaves, when Cam Hayward retires, when TJ Watt is gone. All those younger guys are going to be the basis for this franchise. So getting them playoff experience and getting them playoff wins and having them grow is really important for the Steelers this year because the way I kind of see it is the Steelers have a high floor with all of their veterans. The veterans are going to give them a solid roster. They always make the playoffs, but then the ceiling is going to be determined by if Aaron Rodgers can do what he everybody wants him to do, and if the young guys grow and the young guys develop. And I think that's the biggest part right there that needs to be hammered down because you have intriguing talent and youth at almost every position. Now it's time for them to actually, they got to step out the nest and fly a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest questions I have about this team, obviously long term related to the quarterback position. They got to get it figured out, and they will next year. Well, we'll see if they get it figured out, but they're going to swing at it, right? I mean, it's fairly clear. This team, in my opinion, has set themselves up in a place where they have 12 draft picks. They are kind of set in stone to go and try and make a move up the board to make a play at a quarterback. I think that's quite clear that's what the plan is for Pittsburgh. I also think that they are in a spot where they have drafted and or added players around just about every key position around a quarterback. Like they've drafted the offensive lineman, they've drafted a running back, they traded for DK Metcalf. They still need a receiver, but I do think when we're looking at this, JP, I like your kind of way of saying QB proof the offense. I think that's fun. I don't think they're there yet, but they are trying that, I think, to
Yeah.
a degree. And so I think that's interesting in the long-term view of things. So to you, kind of what is the most important thing for the Steelers this year, where they need to see the most growth? To me, there's no question about what the answer is. I think it's the offensive line. I think that is the biggest thing they need this year. But to you, where is it? Either side of the football.
I think it has to be the offensive line, especially at the tackle spots. That has been where they've been weak. Zach Frazier, budding superstar, one of the best centers in the league in his rookie season, and he's only going to get better. I think Mason McCormick had some really nice flashes last year. I actually have him as one of the breakout players for the Steelers this upcoming season. Receiver, it gets a little shaky outside of DK Metcalf. You're hoping for Roman Wilson to come along. I think that's another spot where you kind of need somebody to step up, but offensive line has to be the most important piece, especially both in the short term with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, but in the long term, like we said, with QB proofing your offense, that starts up front. If you look at how the great teams in the league today are built, you think about the Eagles, they have built themselves up front through the offensive line. You think about the Bills, who have completely revamped their offensive line, have two bookend tackles in Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. It feels like the Steelers are trying to get to that, but you need a big year and big growth from Broderick Jones. And then you also need Troy Fatanu to come in immediately after being injured and take over that right tackle spot and not lose a step. So they're banking a lot on those two, but those tackle spots specifically on the offensive line have to show the most growth.
They do. I mean, listen, I actually think Troy Faltano is going to be really good. I've been a huge fan of his. His very limited tape last year was against Nick Benito, and he gave Nick Benito some real fits against a really good player. Broderick Jones, he's switching to left tackle. That feels more comfortable over on that side, he said. The tape is up and down with two little highs last year, and he was banged up at points, but he's someone that I think is so huge to them. If they have him and Fautanu hit, that is such a huge boon. They'll have probably both guard spots filled as well at some point. Sayamala's in the last year of his deal, but you could extend him or go out and sign somebody. They have the cap space to do that. So I mean, I like the interior. Sayamalo, Frazier, McCormick. I like it. It's a good 1, 2, 3. Then you need obviously the tackles to hit. I think when look at this team, JP, it's an odd conglomeration of talent that I'm not sure always is going to fit together. And I think
Yeah.
that's my thing. How does it was Rodgers the best fit for Metcalf, right? There's some things in their games that match up, but not completely. I actually think Rodgers with Jonnu is actually a great fit. But how does Jonnu fit with Freiermuth and how Arthur Smith plans to use him? I think that's a question. Um, there's some interesting things here. One thing I do think that they did do, this defense should be very good. I mean, should be a top five defense. I think it actually is a failure if they're not a top five defense. Yes, free safety is an issue. I want Thornhill. You probably should go out and sign either Julian Blackman or Justin Sims. I think that's 100% true. But I mean, you look at this defense up and down, aside from free safety, I'm not worried that much about any other spot.
And even at free safety, if you wanted to, you could probably play Jalen Ramsey there, and you have Darius Slay and Joey Porter on the outside. So you have a good problem of figuring out where Jalen Ramsey's going to play. I've always thought as he gets older, he can move back to safety, kind of like Charles Woodson. I think that'd be a good role for him as he ages into the twilight of his NFL career. I think the pass rush is going to be good, especially if you can get TJ Watt to a new contract and also to get on the field motivated. You have a 1, 2, 3 of TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and Herbig that can really cause problems for defenses, especially with their speed off the edge. And then you have good pocket compressors up the middle with Cam Hayward, with Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon. They have all these guys who can crush the pocket from the inside and kind of funnel the quarterback to the outside to the speed rushers on the edge. I want to see if Patrick Queen actually is going to play Mike or Will. I've always said Patrick Queen is a good Will linebacker. He is a run and hit. He is not a green dot. That I think that's giving him too much responsibility. So I wonder who's going to play the Mike next to him to kind of let him be the run and chase guy. I could see the spine of that defense in the passing game kind of be an issue, especially like you said with the hole at free safety. But outside of that, there's nothing that stopping this defense from being very good outside of that and a potential TJ Watt holdout.
Yeah, I think that's the question. I mean, listen, I think they get TJ Watt signed. It's just going to be how does he look? Like if he doesn't get signed till 2 days before the season, how's he look? Listen, the last time he did it, he tied the single season set record. Could he do it again where he's kind of comes on and has a really good year even still? I trust TJ Watt to be ready, but still he's 30 now. He's not 26. So that's a difference. You mentioned the spawn of this defense. It's interesting. I love Deshaun Elliott. I think he's a really good player. And you mentioned Queen as the green dot. It's an interesting talking point here because I think PQ is obviously has his talents and he can obviously fly and he's a great blitzer. So you talk about, having those pass rushers. I mean, I love the idea of sending Queen on free rushes and A-gap mugs and trying to get him through and being a spy at times when you're facing certain quarterbacks. But do we think, and this is a player I don't think I've talked about a lot, do we think Peyton Wilson could potentially be ready for his breakout? And could he be the green dot? Because he's going to start this year. Landon Roberts isn't there anymore. And I think Peyton Wilson's going to take on a lot more role. And that's the big question, I think. I think Peyton Wilson is the one player on that defense that could be that green dot if it's not PQ.
And I think he's important because I think he's better than Queen in coverage, especially like we said, with over the middle of the field, the spine of the defense. I think Peyton Wilson has that potential to be a Mike. I worry a little bit about the play strength and sort of just him getting hit and bounced around in the middle of the defense. But again, when you have Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon, Cam Hayward in front of you to kind of hold those gaps, it allows him to run around and chase a little bit and keep some hits off of him. I I'm curious to see if he can hold up in the middle of the defense when it comes to the run game and not get hammered around a little bit. But if you can get him to be a quality Mike and let Patrick Queen kind of do the you let him do the fidget spinner linebacker stuff where you just have him run fast at the ball, I think you have a chance to have a really good defense that doesn't have a lot of holes anywhere, but there's a lot of strengths, especially with the pass rush.
Right. And I mean, listen, I think as we mentioned, the one hole to me, free safety, not only just because Thornhill wasn't good last year, he's hurt often. I mean, he's had calf injuries and soft tissue issues. I think signing Julian Blackman or Justin Simmons immediately kind of fixes that to a degree. And I think, Thornhill then, if he's really good as your safety three or he beats one of them out, cool. Then you got your free safety thing. You just can't have him unimpeded, I think, there starting. So here's what I wanted to ask you, and this is kind of my fun question to you. The vision for the Steelers this year, does it seem cohesive and does it make sense to you at a large scale? Like does the ideas that they've made with all these swings, they've swapped out different players. Minka goes, Jalen Ramsey comes in. DK comes in, George Pickens goes out. Caleb Johnson comes in, Najee Harris goes out. The whole quarterback room goes out. They add three new guys. I mean, they've made so many sweeping changes. Does this roster make sense to you? Do you see the vision of what the Steelers are trying to crack here?
So it's tough because I can see all the individual pieces and what they're trying to do. But like you said earlier, trying to put them all together is a little bit of a question mark. And it starts with Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith. The biggest question is not if Aaron Rodgers at 42 can still do the damn thing. I mean, he's proven that he can be an efficient point guard of an offense in an offense. But that's if he wants to. Aaron Rodgers wants to have all the control at the line of scrimmage. He wants to come up, shotgun, 11 personnel. He's going to change the play. He's going to run his offense. Arthur Smith does not want to run the Aaron Rodgers offense. Pittsburgh led the NFL in 13 personnel last year. I think they're going to boost that by a lot this year, especially with three quality, capable tight ends on the field. Is Aaron Rodgers going to want to do the play action, bootleg sort of wide zone stuff that Matt LaFleur got him to do that helped him be one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league and won him an MVP? Is he going to want to do that for Arthur Smith? Is that meeting of the minds going to help? Is he going to be able to stretch the field to DK Metcalf? Is a big question because with DK, you kind of you kind of copy paste a bigger version of George Pickens into the same George Pickens role. But with DK, he's not an over the middle guy. He's not going to run a lot of slants. He's going to run a lot of goes, comebacks. You don't want him moving. You don't want him trying to move laterally. You don't want him to try and create all this separation. You want him to dunk on people downfield. Can you get the ball to him consistently? And if not, how are you going to design stuff for him in that range? It feels like with the Steelers, I can see what they're trying to do, but my worry is they haven't made any improvements to the team. It feels like they're just kind of treading water, especially offensively. Like you let George Pickens walk and you go and get, like I said, a bigger version of George Pickens. You let one old quarterback go out the door and you go and get another old quarterback who, by advanced metrics, was worse than Justin Fields last year. You go and you take out Najee Harris, and I think Caleb Johnson's an improvement over Najee Harris. But I think what the issue for me is I can see what they have done to try and improve the team. I just wonder if it's going to be enough. Is it going to be enough to get them that wild card win that they're chasing? I don't know right now.
Right. I think that like everything you said, like I think Metcalf is bigger and slightly better than George Pickens. Rodgers, I actually think slightly better than Russell Wilson. Like Jalen Ramsey is going to add finally a great slot corner that they've been needing for years. Like I think they've like improved outside of corner, which I just think is so immensely improved. It's not even funny. I feel like they've made some subtle improvements, but it's not like massive leaps, right? It's not like crazy upgrades. Now, if they go out and get a wide receiver too, that's legitimate, and you can look at it, I say, okay, I think this offense then it could hum a little bit, as long as the O line holds up. The O line doesn't hold up everything on offense. It's out the door. I don't even
Yeah.
care. So that's like the big thing. But if that holds up, it's good. But I am in the boat with you. I feel like in a lot of ways, while they could win the playoff game, my kind of view right now before training camp is I'm going to watch the same story I just did, right? I'm going to watch them probably eke their way to 10 and 7, 9 and 8, somewhere in there. They're going to have some fun games. They're going to have some good performances. And then when they get to the playoffs, it's going to be a come to Jesus moment. Like that's kind of what I'm worried about. And the other thing is, I'm going to be real with you guys. Like we talk about it all in the season, and then I think people forget about it in the offseason. I don't trust the Steelers coaching staff. I do not. I don't think it's particularly impressive. I think Mike T obviously I trust Mike T in a lot of ways, but I don't trust Arthur Smith to cohesively put Freiermuth, Washington, and Smith together on the field. Like I don't trust that. Terrell Austin last year ran one of the most vanilla defensive schemes along with Mike Tomlin. Both of them deserve blame for that. Position coach wise, there's a few really good position coaches I like on this roster, but it's not enough to make a difference there. So I think that's the other thing. If I think I could see the cohesive vision for the Steelers, but do I trust the offensive staff? I think is actually the most important question here is, how much do you trust Arthur Smith to elevate this team and get the most out of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the question for Arthur Smith's entire career post Tennessee is how high can you take this offense? Where can you take this offense to the point where you're considered one of the for this team, it doesn't even have to be a top 10 unit in the league. If you can just get to like league average offensively, if you can just get to in league a league average point, that could possibly get you a win in the wild card round. That could possibly get you away from having to face Kansas City, Buffalo, or Baltimore in the wild card. I just with Arthur Smith, I see what the plan is, and I like what the idea art of art. I like the idea of an Arthur Smith offense. Big personnel, run the ball. It feels very synced up to what a lot of the NFL is doing in terms of how to defeat two high boxes, lighter personnel. It feels very synced up to that. But then you watch them play, and it's always something missing. It's always that cohesive, like it feels like it's a collection of plays, and sometimes it's not all blended together. And that's been my biggest criticism of Arthur Smith since he took the Atlanta job. It's just there's no cohesion to it. So I want to see him use his best weapons more often. I want to see more Pat Firemouth targets. I want to see him be able to use Jonnu Smith underneath in the yards after the catch role that he did in Miami that got him a Pro Bowl nod. I want to see him be able to uh, balance the Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren touches. I want to see him be able to utilize DK Metcalf downfield. I just there's a lot of components here that make sense, but now it's his job to put them together. And like you said, I don't know if he can consistently.
And the guy I point to the most last year that frustrated me, outside of Freiermuth, who I think Smith tried to. I think some of it was Russell Wilson not wanting to throw to that area of the field. Muth had a good year last year, didn't have the yards to show for it. It was Najee Harris was the guy that I always pointed to. Why are we running wide toss
Tosses.
with Najee Harris all year? Why are we running wide zone? Dude, this guy should be running power. He should be running counter. If you run a zone run, eyes, inside zone, duo. Najee Harris is not an outside the tackles runner, and he just kept beating his head into the thing. It was just ridiculous. And I know it was a common thing among Steelers fans to complain about the toss plays, but like truly, it got ridiculous to a point where these toss plays weren't working and you just kept calling the same play. It felt like insanity. And it never built off anything. Like it's not like they then, fake the toss, then turn around and threw a backside mid screen or, try and hit a guy over the middle. Like it never really built to anything. It was so odd. And that was something that frustrated me with Arthur Smith. I like the bare bones of Arthur Smith's ideas. It's just I don't know if the utilization and maximization of his personnel always shows up. For the Steelers defense, I need more complicated calls. I need this defense to be able to communicate basic coverage schemes. Like that's the biggest thing. They changed, linebackers coach and secondary coach this year and hopefully that makes the gaffes at the end of last year with run fits and coverage busts and everything like that go by the wayside. But you got to move your fronts around. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, you need to be flipping sides. I need TJ Watt over the A gap and the B gap. I need him to be there. I need Highsmith there. I need them to run stunts. Like they didn't run stunts very much last year. I need blitzes from the slot. I need PQ to come down. I'd like to see Deshaun Elliott have some blitzes. And I need rotation on the back end. You're playing spot drop cover three and cover one the most in the NFL. You got to disguise your coverages. Like, JP, I can't tell you this enough. You cannot stand static up front and then not change the picture in the back and have it be spot drop cover three. It doesn't matter how bad the coordinator is. Every coordinator in the NFL can draw up a coverage to bust spot drop cover three. It just is the truth. And the Steelers ran spot drop cover three too much last year and just got picked apart. It's not the player's fault. There's natural weaknesses to spot drop cover three.
Yeah, and I mean, quarterbacks learn how to break down spot drop cover three in like middle school. Like
Yeah.
this is not something that is gonna phase Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson. They've been doing this since they were like in elementary school. So I just want to see, especially with a veteran laden defense like this one, I want to see them utilize some of that communication, utilize some of the things that they have seen. It feels like with Jalen Ramsey in the fold, you can be a little bit more versatile on the back end because you have a guy who can be the nickel. You can have him be outside. You can have him play safety if you want. You can move him around. You can be able to show different types of coverages pre and post snap. You're able to move those guys around the secondary. Up front, I hate to make this comparison because I know what happens when you do, but TJ Watt should be used like how the Browns use Myles Garrett. Let him match up hunt. Let him do in basketball when you find the one guy that isn't good on defense and you just go after him in the pick and roll. Go and find the weakest link on the offensive line and line up TJ Watt over him and see what happens. Go and match up hunt for Alex Highsmith. Find one-on-ones for Cam Hayward. Do stunts, loops, try and find advantages. The Steelers can't just throw their guys out there and they just outgood everyone. You don't have the personnel to do that, quite frankly, because everybody in the NFL is good. But what you can do is put them in favorable matchups and scenarios. And I think that's what I want Terrell Lawson to do the most. And it kind of is similar to the Steelers' offense is your best players on the team, find ways to get them on the weakest link of the offense.
Right. It's the same thing. And then, I remember at the end of the last year, they tried to run some cool stuff and they just couldn't communicate together. I mean, that's coaching too. You got to be able to, when it's that basic, right? When you're calling out coverages and you're trying just to get your guys to do the 11 things they need to do. It's hard, man. I mean, that it was a tough job coaching down the stretch last year. And so that needs to change too. But all in all, we go back to that question, what's a success for the Steelers this year? And to me, it is wild card berth or better, playoff win. Those two things, that's a successful season for Pittsburgh. And I think it starts to build a culture. I'd like the idea of what the Steelers do is the idealistic thing of what every team wants to do. That, you don't rebuild, you retool, right? The Steelers are trying to test that. They're trying to win now while trying to find their quarterback of the future. It's a lot of teams in this spot blow it up and just tank and go for it. The Steelers are I commend the Steelers in some ways to saying we're not going to do that and we are going to go out and compete. But I also say, you need to kind of put cohesive vision and build a culture. I do think getting a taste of playoff success, I do think there's something intangible. There's something to be said about having the taste of winning playoff games. When Cam Hayward's not going to be here in 2 years, who's going to be the next guy that can show you how to win? And I do think bringing guys like Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey that have done that, right? That have won big games. And you bring in Rodgers, obviously a Super Bowl winner. Like you at least brought in guys that know how to win. And I think there's something to be said about that too, where you're building stuff off the field just as much as you are on the field.
And I think it's such a dangerous game to be in both those worlds of being competitive right now and having all your stocks for a quarterback of the future because everybody wants a quarterback. Everybody needs a quarterback. And if the guy is good, he's not going to be there by the time you're picking at like 24, 25. So by stockpiling all the picks that they have, you've put yourself in the position to make that swing if you're still up in the wild card pick range after the season. But again, it is tough to live in that world because if you don't get the guy, if you don't find that guy at quarterback, you are stuck in that wheel forever. And you don't want to be stuck in that purgatory of being in the wild card every year and losing. You don't want to be stuck in 9-8, 10-7. That is not a fun place to be.
It's not. And so we'll see if the Steelers can kind of walk this tightrope. You know, if they're good enough next year, and let's say they did make a run, to the championship game, I mean, they're going to be, 28th, 29th in picking. I mean, that's going to be really hard to do. Granted, the Chiefs, when they got Mahomes, went up from 27 to 10. I think that's what the Steelers are kind of looking at. Are saying, we don't need to do that. We literally just saw the Chiefs do that a few years ago, and we think we can do it. Buffalo did it too. Buffalo went, I think, 10 or 11 spots to get Josh Allen throughout their cumulative thing. So the Steelers are looking at saying, we can do that. We can win while trying to find the upgrade. It's a tough, tough risk, JP. It is, but I do think the Steelers, right now, successful season, wild card win. That's where I'm
Yeah.
laying the boundary at.
Yeah. Get to the divisional round, see what happens from there.
Right. It absolutely is that way. All right, JP, thanks for coming on, man. Tell them where they can follow you, read your stuff, watch you, all that great stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me on social media on Twitter at Acosta32_JP, on Blue Sky at Acosta32JP. I am the football writer for SB Nation. So wherever football is being played, NFL, college, NFL draft, you'll probably find me talking about it. So make sure to follow along. I got some NFL 2026 draft stuff as well as NFL preview stuff coming out real soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, folks, make sure to follow me on Twitter, Farabaugh FB, Blue Sky Nick Farabaugh. Check the Steelers stuff, penlive.com/Steelers. Training camp's coming next week. Actually, a week from today, I will be out in Latrobe, ready to go. So make sure to check that out and subscribe to the YouTube channel as usual, folks. Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow.